Okay, so we're rewriting the equation. So we're still going to have A equals, we're going to say B1 plus B2 times our height. We're going to divide all that by 2. So we're doing B1 plus B2 times height. We're going to do all that first, and then we're going to divide by 2. So I'm going to rewrite that. Remember, on every single one of those equations, we are writing in the equation. So every single one of these, we're writing in the equation. That's part of our answer choice. So we write our answer for the equation, and then we add in everything else from there. So for the very first example, for bases 1 and 2, those lines are going to be parallel with each other, which means that they will never touch. They're going to continue going in the same direction, and they will not touch each other. So the very first base that I see, just as I'm looking at my table, is going to be right here. That's going to be my B1. So I'm going to write, so I'm skipping over, I'm going to say 8. My B2 is a line that is parallel to it. So the line that does not touch it and continues the same way is going to be this one right here. It's going to be the 4. So I've got 8 plus 4 in parentheses. And then my other number that they give me is my height. And that height goes from one of the bases to the other base. It touches both bases. And that will be 6. So I've got 8 plus 4 times 6. And then all of that's going to be divided by 2. So 8 plus 4 times 6 divided by 2. I'm going to do what's in the parentheses first because that's what PEMDAS rules are. So 8 plus 4 gives me 12. When I have parentheses in between a number, that means multiplication. So I'm going to multiply that by 6. So I'm going to do 12 times 6. I'm going to come over here and do 12 times 6. 6 times 2 is, let me put this way. All right, come on. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So I get 72. So then I'm going to do 72 divided by 2. I'm going to bring it all the way over here. I'm going to work it out just like I normally would. This is just regular division. So I've multiplied, I've added, I've multiplied, and now I'm going to divide. And you're going to do this for every single one. You're going to add, you're going to multiply, and then you're going to divide. 2 goes into 7 3 times. The remainder of 1, I bring my 2 down. 2 goes into 12 6 times. So then my final answer is going to be that A equals 36 inches squared. So A equals 36 inches squared. This takes a lot more time. Doing a trapezoid, you've got more steps than you did whenever you were doing any of the other shapes. So now you're having to do 3 different steps. You're going to have to add numbers together, divide or multiply numbers together, and then divide numbers. You've got to do all 3 of those steps every single time in order to get your answer.
I was still reading the first one.
Okay. Also, it doesn't matter which one you choose as your base 1 or your base 2. It's just whatever number that you see first that you know is one of the bases. It does not matter. As a reminder, your bases are going to be the ones that you can sit flat somewhere, okay? So whenever you have a base, it's like whenever you sit down, you have a base. Does that make sense? Everybody sits down on a base. So whatever you could sit on a table would be your base. So on example A, I just picked the very first one I saw, which I saw 8 first. I'm going to do the same thing whenever I'm looking at this next one. Okay, so now I'm going to pick my bases again. So I'm going to pick this as my base 1. My base 2 is going to be the one that is parallel to it. They do not touch. And that's 9. And then my height is wherever both of my bases are aligned. So there's going to be a line that goes and touches the top base and the bottom base. And that will be 4. And then don't forget, you're still going to divide by 2. So you got to bring all those steps down. You're still going to take care of those things. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to make sure that I do the thing in my parentheses first. So 6 plus 9 gives me 15. So I'm doing 15 times 4. Four times 5 is 20. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 2 is 6, and I get 60. And then I'm going to do 60 divided by 2. Two goes into 6 3 times. That cancels out. And that becomes 30. So my answer would be A equals 30 feet squared. Anytime we are talking about a shape that is two-dimensional, so it's a flat, like a piece of paper, is two-dimensional, okay? They're always going to be squared. So every single time that we're asking for area, your units are always going to be squared. Make sure you get the math portion of it done, and then you'll be able to just add whatever units measured in squared, right? Every single time. So if you do not have your answer squared, your answer would be considered wrong because area is always squared. So as long as you remember to write your formula in every single problem, you're going to match your bases. I don't care which base is base 1 or which one's base 2. I don't care. Your bases just have to be labeled. Okay? You add those two together, you multiply by the height, and the height is whatever line and measurement touches both of them, and it has to be a straight line. Like the height, think about this if you're standing up and we're doing height. Would you measure yourself if you were leaning over to see how tall you were? I wouldn't, right? If you're leaned over in a certain direction, you're not going to get your true height. So when you're standing straight up and your feet are on the floor, your body's going straight up at like a 90-degree angle, right? Then you'll be able to see how tall you are. That's the height that we're looking at. It's got to be a line that shows us, it's a whole straight line that shows us from one base to the other. It cannot have an angle or a tilt. It can't have anything. It's got to be a straight line, just like if you were going to measure your height whenever you were trying to see how tall you were, okay? So at this point, you're working on whatever assignments you've missed so far. Area of trapezoids, since it's fresh on your mind, I recommend doing that right now in class. If I can help you, just ask her something, send a message in the chat or something. But you have the remainder of class to continue working through trapezoids. And then you need to make sure you get anything else that you are missing completed.